In this correspondent edition of OTR, we look at the budget stalemate, who's in the lead in the money race for governor, and the school cell phone ban, thought dead, is alive. Providing their take on all this, Colin Jackson, Samantha Schreiber, Lauren Gibbons, and Bill Ballinger. Sit in with us as we get the inside out. Off the Record.
Production of Off the Record is made possible in part by Bellwether Public Relations, a full-service strategic communications agency partnering with clients through public relations, digital marketing, and issue advocacy. Learn more at bellwetherpr.com. And now, this edition of Off the Record with Tim Skubic.
Welcome back to Studio C, another edition of Off the Record as summer comes to an end. It's almost over, isn't it?
Is it really?
Yeah.
I think summer's just begun.
Okay, well, let's go with that. I like that much better than my analysis. So let's do an analysis of the cell phone ban in schools. Last week, all of these reported that it was dead, right?
Mm-hmm. Not us.
Yes. Well, guess what, boys and girls? The corpse has winked. Let's take a look.
I'm very confident that we'll have 56 votes minimum on our side of the aisle to move this forward.
You've never told that to me before.
That could be breaking news then.
It's likely that many school kids last week were the ones laughing with reports that a ban on cells in schools was dead. But this week, the legislative corpse has winked with a bell-to-bell proposed ban.
Well, bell-to-bell is kind of the gold standard in cell phone or smartphone prohibition in schools. When the morning bell rings, you put the smartphones away. When the afternoon bell rings for dismissal, you can get them back out.
Never one to toss in the towel, Oakland County Representative Mark Tisdale has rewritten his bill, allowing students in the middle of an active shooting or other emergency to actually use their cells. In his original bill, he strongly opposed that.
I'm willing to make that concession to help move this bill along.
Backers of the ban report that grades have improved and assaults in schools have dropped, as was the case in the Auburn Hills Avon Middle School.
At the end of the first year, there was a 68% reduction in fights, an 80% reduction in disciplinary referrals for counselors, and a 100% reduction in assaults on teachers.
The lawmaker hopes that Governor Whitmer can also deliver some Democratic votes. And unlike last week when he lost this battle, the Never Say Never lawmaker now says,
I'm very confident that we'll have 56 votes minimum on our side of the aisle to move this forward.
But ironically, the representative felt the same way last week when he lost. So, Sam, what'd you make of this switcheroo?
So I know at first I was like, it's dead. But honestly, I don't think it's dead. I think it's a bit stuck in the womb right now. One of my biggest questions for 2025 is this the year of independent collaborators or the year of partisan firebrands? I think when Governor Whitmer called on legislators during her State of the State to send a cell phone ban in schools to her desk, I think she was really trying to prove herself as a collaborator, right? It doesn't matter if you are a MAGA conservative in St. Clair County or if you're a liberal in Washington County. We all agree that you would rather have a kid paying attention to school as opposed to scrolling on TikTok and Instagram while their grades plummet and math and reading scores are down. But at the same time, I think that this ultimately embodies the heightened state of disagreement that is being experienced in Lansing right now.
Well, was the defeat last week because of the content of this legislation or ancillary issues surrounding what happened on that disastrous day?
I think fundamentally, I don't think anyone is saying, I want my kid to be on their phone all day while they're at school. I think where the discrepancies lie is there is a legitimate concern that if someone's phone is in their locker, for example, and an emergency happens, if they go into lockdown, a lot of students would, and probably their parents as well, would prefer that their student have a means to contact them in an emergency situation. So I think that's where some of the discrepancy and some of the concern in the Democratic Senate with the Republicans' version of the bill is coming from.
Well, when we talk about what happened last Thursday, it wasn't necessarily a great day for Republicans. They didn't have all their members there. And I think to a certain extent, we were told ahead of time that Representative Tisdale had made a deal with the governor's office, that there was some sort of agreement there. Clearly, it didn't materialize. I think part of that was Republicans didn't have all their members there. And this was a chance for Democrats to maybe flex a little bit of muscle. It's also important to note this wasn't universally supported or voted against by Republicans either. I believe you had Representative Jamie Green vote against this bill, if I'm not mistaken, in addition to everything else. And so afterward, there was clearly frustration there. Representative Tisdale's desk is right on the edge of the House where reporters sit, so you can overhear in conversations. And so without getting too much into what you hear, what you don't hear, everything, there was frustration there.
Eavesdropping on the representative?
You could tell there was frustration there on the floor, but also we were told, okay, whatever. If this is going to come up again, this is going to be something that Republicans are going to push for. So whatever the next version of this bill that comes up for a vote in the House, we'll see. And meanwhile, you have Senate Democrats, Representative Paul Hankey, which I'm sure you can probably speak to as well. She said, the support's really behind the Senate bill, not the Representative Tisdale bill. So that's another thing.
And picking up on what Colin said, look, don't put something up for a vote unless you have all your members.
He thought he had it. He told me.
Look, Republicans have a 58-52 majority, but 3 members were absent. You got to have one Democrat come over to get to 56 from 55. And they should have had that arranged. They thought they had it. Yes, it didn't happen. So I think getting back to what you hinted at, Tim, there were ancillary issues surrounding us. It wasn't really on the substance of the bill. It was, we don't want to give Matt Hall and the Republicans a win. We don't want this to happen unless absolutely everything is ironclad, agreed to in advance.
Well, and to that point, Republicans last session proved they could vote as a unit, occasionally derailed some Democratic initiatives, and here Democrats are saying, well, we can do that too sometimes.
Well, remember last session, the Democrats were given kudos by everybody because with a 56-54 majority, really narrow, they were so disciplined, they got all this legislation through without anybody leaving the reservation. This time, the Republicans have a bigger majority, and they can't get it done. Let's hope they can now.
Can I just make one more point, though, specifically thinking about cell phone bans in this very heavily digital age that we're living in? It's not a nuanced concept that these debates and bills take time. How many years did it take for the hands-free driving bills to get done? I mean, that was, I want to say, over 5 years. Is that accurate? Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. But, I mean, people want to make the case of this is an issue of legislative control versus school board control. The Paul-Hankey bill on the Senate Democratic side says that it's up to the school boards. You have to establish some type of restriction. What that looks like is up to you all.
And the problem with that, Mr. Tisdale said, was if we allow all of these school districts to go on and run the clock as they debate this thing on to infinitum, cell phones will be passe. There won't be any more, which is obviously not true.
I think this is going to happen. I mean, it's already happening at the local level. They can do this right now.
It's in 30 school districts right now.
Traverse City is a model of what should be that policy.
You agree this will pass?
Well, I think the question again is, what did last week do to the prospects for this bill going forward and what it looks like going forward? Are Republicans in the House willing to compromise as much with the governor's office and the Senate now that they feel that House Democrats at least turn their back on them?
Well, he said in that piece he had 56 votes.
There's more than 56 Republicans.
Why is this so partisan anyway? This is ridiculous that almost every Republican supports it and the Democrats are opposed. It's ridiculous.
Well, for Senate Education Chair Paul-Hankey, even though she has a bill that, again, would give school districts the power on this topic, it's not like this is a #1 priority for her. I talked to her at the beginning of this year, and she says, my priority is reducing class sizes so that we're not overly maxing out teachers with the number of students they're responsible for.
It shouldn't be either or. It could be both and.
But in this era, negotiations is what makes the headlines.
Well, speaking of priorities, the schools are also concerned about another little thing called a state budget. Let's take a look at that story. Normally by this time, school officials know how much money they're getting from the state and they are writing their budgets, but right now they are not. That's because the schools have no state budget. Lawmakers have not passed it, and school officials argue that's because school aid is now linked to fixing the roads.
We are putting concrete over kids. It's been stated that we will not see a school budget until we see a roads budget.
This lobbyist representing disadvantaged school districts calls this a, quote, manufactured crisis, resulting in this.
Holding up the budget to pave the way for a roads deal is unacceptable, and every day that ticks by only makes the situation worse.
There are now two L words, part of the local school district chatter this summer: layoffs and larger classrooms.
That will become a common thing across the state for all of our superintendent leaders.
We know parents don't want large class sizes.
But some conservative Republicans argue there is no state aid bill adopted because lawmakers are still taking more time to weed out the pork in the school aid budget first.
There's over 110 different pork barrel projects in our education budget. Money that does not go into the classrooms, money that goes to all these outside nonprofit run by a bunch of leftists that doesn't benefit the kids.
So the pressing question is, when schools are back in session in the fall, will local schools have their state aid budget? Good question, remaining unanswered at this read. Isn't it Governor Whitmer who said we're not going to have a budget without a road bill?
Yes,
she did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think she's right.
Well, obviously these folks don't disagree.
Well, I believe Sam and I were there together at the press conference when she said the budget isn't done until she gets the roads plan done. This has been a hallmark of her tenure as governor, dating back to 2018, fix the damn roads. She found ways to get it funded. Originally, that mechanism's running out. Now the state needs a more permanent solution, and she clearly feels.
What about the educators who say that's the wrong policy?
They are pretty concerned at this point, and it's getting pretty disturbingly close in their minds to October 1st, which is the constitutional deadline for the budget to be done. It's always better for educators and also local governments as well, whose fiscal calendars are on a little bit of a different calendar than the state. It's making it very hard to plan for the future right now. So it makes sense at this juncture that they're sounding the alarm.
So I would assume the governor has linked these two because she thinks she can use leverage on both to get what she wants, but will she unlink it so the school folks will be satisfied?
I mean, at the end of the day, the concept that seems to be the most popular right now, but additionally the most complicated, is a system that would ensure any state taxes that you pay at the gas pump are for sure going to go to the roads and roads alone. Now, with that being said, the sales tax that you pay at the pump additionally goes to other obligations like public schools, local government revenue sharing. You say that you want $2 to $3.1 billion extra for road funding. Well, when you do that, you have to figure out what are you going to cut to make sure that the public schools aren't missing anything. And that's kind of become a bit of the complication, right? Some people would describe what we're experiencing right now as a budget-making game of chess. I call it the budget-making game of chicken that we're amid. I think Senate Democrats and House Republicans and even the governor herself are waiting to see who's going to swerve first to get them what they want.
Well, I got a contrarian point of view that's not very popular.
Go for it, Billy.
Well, I'm just saying, how long have we heard fix the damn roads? I mean, it's been since 2017. So look, bottom line is the roads need to get money. And the schools are going to get their money. It's going to be later rather than sooner. But if the price to be paid is that schools have to wait so that we can finally fix the damn roads, it's worth it. And that's what Whitmer is aiming for. And that's what I think Matt Hall and the Republicans on the House side, they're aiming for too.
It's fascinating. I do Republican Democratic roundtables on my weekly podcast program, and I had a state representative, Tom Coons, declare Republican, and he had told me that as the days get shorter, the nights will get longer in Lansing and the Capitol building. And it's interesting to see people like Republican lawmakers or the governor herself enter this chapter of comfort of, we are going to be negotiating a budget after the school year starts. We are going to be negotiating when the fall comes and the leaves begin to drop.
And the days get shorter, the nights get longer, but who's in Lansing to negotiate? The House has had one voting day since July 1st, since that deadline was missed. Meanwhile, last week we also saw them cut their lead Democrat on the House Appropriations Committee. So right now you see this has been a negotiation among principals. You know, the Senate has said multiple times they want to see a full House budget proposal and a full budget passed. The House hasn't come near that yet. They haven't unveiled much else besides the first like 5 departments between like education, higher education, et cetera. So we're still a long ways out from getting this done if that's the case.
And this road funding debate stands to make a lot of lawmakers vulnerable in some of our state's most competitive districts, especially in Macomb County, where sometimes the roads can look quite disastrous. I say that as a Macomb County gal myself. But right now, both the governor and Senate Democrats say, okay, you want a road funding deal, we are going to have to explore creating new revenues for the state, new arteries of state revenue.
Well, and there's the rub, because the House Republicans say, no, we don't.
Well, what happens when there is any type of tax increase? I would dare say that's when the recall efforts start to drop.
I'm not sure recalls will come out of fixing the roads because people want it. You know, people. I think people at home understand the money is needed. Now they are going to argue over how to find it, right?
Absolutely. This has been a tale as old as time. The roads always need money. They always need more money than people are really comfortable providing. And you know, I think when I have talked to folks throughout the transportation industry, it's always said, you can't keep cutting up the pie. You need to make the pie bigger, is their argument, and that argument for more revenue. But it's really tough to get the political will to do that.
Well, and the hook for the local folks is this. A lot of this money will go into the local roads, which in the past have gone into all the federal roads and all the state roads, as the local folks said, where's our share? So we'll continue. Mike Duggan had a great week, a lot of people are saying. He picked up some bipartisan support from some people you might or might not know. Some names on the list are well known. Democrat Mark Bernstein, former Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang, former state Republican Party chair Ron Weiser, and car guy Roger Penske. Some of the names not so well known, but either way, there's about 24 Republicans and Democrats endorsing Mike Duggan's independent bid for governor.
I think it's pretty impressive.
Were you surprised by this?
Yeah, quite frankly.
Most of the names on the list are well known in this town, but typical voters out there in the real world probably don't know who they are. 6 News pollster Bernie Porn says that really doesn't matter at the end of the day because Mr. Duggan can run commercials basically taunting the issue of bipartisan support at a time when the two political parties are fighting.
They may not know the name, but when you put the list together of both Democrats and Republicans who support Duggan, that kind of supports the argument that he is trying to break through the logjam of the two political parties and look at the support.
So how will the Democrats running for governor counteract this bipartisan message from the independent guy in the race?
Solving Detroit problems is not the same as addressing the problems of my community in Lansing or in Grand Rapids or wherever the case may be. And he's not qualified to address those issues because they're different than Detroit.
Last week, Mr. Duggan raised more money than all the rest, and now this list of D's and R's who are supporting him. One could argue at this early point in the governor's race, Mr. Duggan appears to be on a roll. Colin, is he on a roll?
Yeah, I think the win is to Mike Duggan's sales. Earlier this week, the New York Times came out with an article saying downtown Detroit is back. I think that's, in a lot of the article focused on, real estate stuff to do downtown, ways to get downtown, the key line, the moneyed interests. I think that when you look at Mike Duggan's endorsements, you see the Detroit Regional Chamber, but then you also see, like you said, bipartisan folks in and out of government or related to government. He has a lot of union endorsements that I think Democrats would have loved to have won. I think, and I do want to give credit to Sam Robinson of Detroit 1 Million, who has made this case to me many times that Duggan is a very savvy politician. My personal opinion, I think his biggest issue is still name ID, especially when you get to like the west side of the state and away from Metro Detroit. But I think for a lot of people around Metro Detroit that do know him, and again, to people that are from Metro Detroit who have been going to Detroit and seen it change over the years, I think that Mike Duggan has a lot of clout and a lot of interest from people.
So what kind of pop does he get from this bipartisan list?
I think in terms of Pop, it is, as you mentioned, just the fact that he can say that it's bipartisan, right? Like he's getting support from Republicans and Democrats. That's his entire message. He's the independent. He can rise above the petty partisan politics. That's his whole message. So as you mentioned, just being able to say, even if the names aren't quite the hottest
Butch
ticket
Hollowell.
items. Yeah, exactly.
Butch.
It's like, and
Condolences, Butch.
to Colin's point as well, just the fact that Detroit seems to be doing well is good for the mayor of the city. He can take credit for some of that, or at least say, hey, I was the mayor when this good thing happened.
Yeah, but what Bernie's point was, in outstate Michigan, nobody cares how Detroit is doing. Those are a whole different set of problems.
They are different, but he has an ability to talk about what's really important in terms of solving Michigan's basic problems to people in West Michigan, upstate. He's been around the state a lot more than a lot of people realize. He's building up connections, bridges with important groups in all sections of the state. So, I mean, not only did he get all these bipartisan endorsements, but look at the fundraising. Have you seen the figures on that? The people giving him money, huge, important figures in the Republican and Democratic parties, both sides. So he is on a roll, as Colin said. The question is it going to last 15 months? I mean, we're in August almost of 2025. He's got to make it last all the way to November of next year.
When we put the show to bed last week, the numbers from Mr. Duggan had not come out, and some of the detail of the numbers were coming out after the fact. So I'm going to make two corrections. One, he was the top fundraiser among everybody.
Right.
Is that not correct? It's 3.2 million. Now, the Benson people thought they had the headline. She came in at 3.5 million. Do the math. It's a little more. Okay, but here's the problem. 1.1 million of her money came from another fund that she transferred over. We forgot to say that last week, and I apologize to everybody who caught us on that. Does who's ahead in the money race really mean anything?
Well, I think the fact that he's able to spend it like a general election candidate right now, you talked about how he does have visibility. He's starting to build up visibility in northern Michigan, West Michigan. He's able to do so as a general election candidate, courting both Republican, Democratic, and purple independent voters. I think what we see with Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan's independent candidacy is somebody who is disrupting partisan traditional donor bases and partisan traditional volunteer bases in a very large-scale way.
But he's also getting some flack for some dark money, which has shown up, right?
Yeah, but all of them have dark money.
Yeah,
and they want more of it, okay? But they want to castigate Mike Duggan for doing the best, getting it right now.
Well, can't you make the same case against Jocelyn Benson for getting donations from out of state?
Exactly.
What does a California...
John James, too.
Yeah, but one thing that I do also want to mention is that people are getting into the same room for Mike Duggan that you never would have imagined them breaking bread before. You're talking about people like former Governor Rick Snyder's past chief of staff, his past treasurer, people from the pro-business deregulation Snyder era are coming together with unions such as the carpenters, the bricklayers, the hospitality and the venue unions. It's fascinating to ask the question of why do you view Mike Duggan as a worthwhile investment to cause this disruption?
Well, there are some people who are saying they're cozying up to Mike Duggan because they get stuff from him out of Detroit.
Well, that's part of it. But look, the bottom line is this guy is the strongest independent candidate for governor in the entire history of Michigan.
Well, he's the only one, Billy. By definition, he has to be the best.
Over time, you go back to the 19th century, and there were third-party candidates. I mean, there have been a lot of people who've tried, but he is in a better position to actually be elected than anybody ever. And I think he's the favorite right now.
Look, the importance of this story is that it helps him to knock down the story that this is a far-fetched, off-the-wall, never going to happen.
Well, exactly.
Now people in town are saying, yeah, it could happen.
Yeah, you start as a curiosity, then you become a threat, and then you become whatever you become after Election Day.
The Duggan experiment, and you can no longer make the case of, anyone who was Duggan curious on the Dem or Republican side, they were just a rhino or a dino to begin with. My question, though, are we going to see other people in Michigan, now that they see this great Duggan experiment, are they going to try replicating it if they don't see a clear path to victory in their own primaries?
But let's also throw on the table that they really have not started to come after, if you will, Mr. Duggan, right?
Yeah. No, because they had their arms around him last year. Like, it's hard, especially if you're on the Democrat side of the aisle, to attack him. And it's the same thing. Mike Duggan's still going to have to do a lot of work to distance himself from Democratic Party platforms.
He won't be able to do it. I mean, they got pictures of him and Joe Biden, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is a long public record and a long history here. And I think it's interesting, too, the lanes that everybody's going to have to take to move forward to Election Day. For example, Mike Duggan, because he's going forward as this independent candidate, you see Secretary Benson going forward. She has a lot of, when she announced, she had a lot of endorsements from progressives in the state legislature, for example, to try to take that lane moving forward for this governor's race.
I think there's still so many different storylines that have to play out, and I think a lot of this, a lot of the potential attacks towards Duggan will come after the primary.
Potential.
Well, no, these folks got to get through the primary first, so they're focusing on their base, their Democrats, their Republicans. They're not necessarily worried about those people flirting with Duggan's campaign.
Yeah, but you know what? They got to walk and chew gum at the same time, because the longer they stay away from him, the more he builds, and the tougher it is to take a Humpty Dumpty down.
Yeah, and that's definitely true. And so it does remain to be seen. How, especially after that fundraising haul, how do Democrats and Republicans really take that and maybe split their time a little bit between winning that primary and saying, hey, stick with the party.
The toll it's going to have on inter-party relations.
What inter-party relations?
I just think you're already
Have you seen something I've missed?
I'm already seeing fireworks and waterworks of people saying we have to all get behind Benson now on the Democrat side of things. I just wonder what type of feelings are going to be hurt within.
Yeah, well, fat chance that Swanson is going to bail out, right? Yeah. Fat chance that the LG is going to bail out.
I think there are chances that they bail out.
You do?
Yeah.
It's hard for a party to win 3 straight terms in the governor's office in Michigan, though.
Yeah.
Not only that, look, straight ticket voting, big thing next year. With Duggan and independent, what does that do to candidates on down the ballot?
We've done it again. We killed 28 minutes with scintillating commentary and analysis. Thanks to the 4 of you. Thanks to you out there in TV land for watching. Come on back next week for more OTR. See you then.
Production of Off the Record is made possible in part by Bellwether Public Relations, a full-service strategic communications agency partnering with clients through public relations, digital marketing, and issue advocacy. Learn more at bellwetherpr.com. For more Off the Record, visit WKAR.org. Michigan public television stations have contributed to the production costs of Off the Record.